Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. And this video, this one video I'm reacting to is gonna be done in 3 parts. The reason it's gonna be done in 3 parts is because this video is fucking long, and I can't sit through the whole thing. Because this video in total is 3 hours and 30 minutes long. So what I'm gonna do is do one part each for the next 3 days. This video is top 55 unsolved mysteries leaving viewers astonished. So we're gonna do 55 to 30 today, 30 to 15 tomorrow, and then 15 to and then the rest 15 to 0, 15 to 1, day after. So it's gonna be done in 3 parts, just sort of because this video in total is 3 hours and 30 minutes long, and I can't sit through the whole thing. I wish I could, but I just can't. So we're gonna get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, subscribe button, comment thing down below. Let's go.
Number 55, Natalie Jenkins. Natalie Jenkins struggled with drug addiction for much of her life. The UK woman also faced mental illness issues that only made her connection to reality even weaker. Her family stated that before she went missing, she was working as an escort and dealer in the streets of Middlesbrough. Despite her rocky lifestyle, she managed to remain in regular contact with her loved ones. No matter what hardships or demons she was facing, she made it a point to check in with her family frequently. So, when Natalie went silent for several days in December 2019, her family promptly reported the 32-year-old as missing. Although a search and investigation were quickly enacted, everyone knew that finding Natalie was going to be no easy task. It was often hard enough to track her down when she was using substances or having a mental health episode, but the possibility that she was kidnapped or even murdered made the investigation even more complicated. Although they knew the issues they would face, the team persisted. Kessie had been living in a house with other people in similar situations. Although it wasn't confirmed, investigators believed that the house was being used to sell drugs and host escort services. Her roommates said that they hadn't seen or heard from her in several days either, but that with their way of life, this wasn't completely uncommon. Still, they shared that they were also worried because there had been a few instances where Natalie was robbed by her clients or faced abuse. No one could share information in identifying any of those clients. There was a brief break in the case when CCTV footage from a home in Middlesbrough recorded Natalie walking down the street in the evening around 7 p.m. This footage was important in identifying Natalie's last known whereabouts. It also helped investigators publish details of exactly what she was wearing the night she went missing. The video was apparently taken just minutes before Natalie wandered off forever. Sadly,
The fact that someone, again, like this can go, someone that's substance issues and mental health issues, in this case she had a thing where she was an escort and all that, and she just vanishes and nobody knows where she is, and no one can identify anyone she was with, and no one can help at all. So this goes, is police pretty much on their own, unable to solve a crime. It's so damn disappointing that this can happen to someone.
This was the last important piece of evidence that the investigation could find. Natalie is still missing. Anyone with information relating to this disappearance is encouraged to report it to Cleveland Police at cleveland.police.uk. Number 54, the 29th victim of Dean Corll. Dean Arnold Corll was born on December 24, 1939, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. His parents, Mary and Arnold Corll, divorced when he was quite young, leading Mary to relocate with her children to Memphis, Tennessee, for a fresh start. Corll's early life was marked by frequent shifts between his parents, who divorced and remarried each other on several occasions. These disruptions likely had a profound impact on young Dean's psyche, as children crave stability and routine. In the mid-1950s, the Corll family once again moved, this time to Pasadena, Texas. It was here that Mary started a candy business named Pecan Prince, which soon became a family venture. Dean, showing a proclivity for discipline and diligence, often helped with the business. Later on, the candy company would be renamed Corll Candy Company. Corll was described as a well-mannered child by his neighbors and acquaintances. As an adult, he was known to give away free candy to local children, a habit that later contributed to his grim Candyman nickname. After graduating from high school,
Oh god, yeah, he's an evil killer that got a freaking nickname Candyman. Oh boy. Okay. He's an evil man that took advantage of things and got nicknamed Candy. So I have a feeling target children. Pretty obvious guess.
Coral was drafted into the military in 1964. It was during his time in the service that he reportedly first realized he was homosexual. Upon his return to civilian life in Houston, he openly explored his sexuality, albeit in an era when homosexuality was still largely stigmatized. Though there were no overt signs in Coral's early life of the monstrous nature he would later reveal, there were subtle indications of his predatory nature. He often flirted with young male employees who worked at the candy factory, and his interest in teenage boys became more obvious, to the point that it was a subject of local gossip. By the late 1960s, Coral's mother sold the family candy business, and Coral transitioned to working as an electrician. Yet, despite his life seeming outwardly ordinary, the darkness within him began to take shape, culminating in the horrific series of murders that commenced in the early 1970s. Dean Coral, with the assistance of two teenage accomplices, Elmer Wayne Henley and David Brooks, carried out a killing spree that spanned from 1970 to 1973. Targeting young male victims, Coral employed Henley and Brooks to lure victims to his home with promises of parties or simply by using force. Once at his residence, the victims were restrained and subjected to horrific acts of abuse before being murdered. The ultimate fate of these victims only came to light in August 1973 when Henley, in a dramatic turn of events, shot and killed Coral after a disagreement. This action led Henley to confess to the police about Coral's heinous crimes, and the
Wait a minute, so Henley, who was an accomplice with him, just snapped at some point and just killed the guy, killer himself. Either must have been they argued over something that was going on, or he couldn't watch what was happening anymore, and then immediately confessed to it.
Subsequent investigations unearthed the bodies of the victims from mass graves in various locations, including a boat shed in southwest Houston. While Coral's known victims were eventually identified, a question haunted investigators and the public: could there be more? Rumors and speculation started circulating when an itemized list made by Coral was publicized. This list contained coded details about each of his victims and, most significantly, mentioned a 29th victim. The theory of an additional victim was further supported when an old Polaroid photograph was discovered in 2012 among personal items belonging to Henley. The image depicted a terrified young boy, handcuffed and in evident distress, matching the modus operandi of Coral's known crimes. However, he could not be identified as any of the killer's known victims. While experts have suggested this photograph could be the key to uncovering the identity of the unknown 29th victim, there has been no further progress since the discovery of the image. Despite efforts by law enforcement agencies, the boy in the photograph remains unidentified. Some speculate he might have been a transient or perhaps a runaway, which would explain the difficulty in pinning down his identity. But without concrete evidence, the boy in the picture's history and possible connection to Coral's spree remains an unsolved mystery. Number 53. Who killed Sarah E. Neal? June 21, 2005, started as a typical day in a tranquil neighborhood in Omaha, Nebraska. However, it soon turned into one that would be etched indelibly on the collective memory of the community. The life of Sarah E. Neal, a vivacious 16-year-old brimming with potential, was horrifically cut short within what should have been the safety of her own home. Once the brutal crime was discovered, the shockwave of grief that radiated through the community was palpable, and an immediate hunt for the person responsible commenced. However, as the days stretched into weeks, and the weeks into years, the investigation cooled, leaving behind an enduring, haunting question: who killed Sarah E. Neal? Sarah was a radiant teenager, known for her brightness and amiability. Her love for the flute, passion for swimming, and close-knit circle of friends made her an unlikely candidate for such a harrowing fate. On that fateful day in 2005, Sarah's father returned home from work to find the front door ajar. Immediately suspicious, he ventured inside, only to encounter a nightmarish scene. His beloved daughter, Sarah, lay lifeless in the kitchen, bleeding from a gunshot wound. As detectives labored to reconstruct the sequence of events, unsettling facts emerged. Sarah had been alone at home that day, and it was unclear whether the doors were forced or Sarah had let her attacker in. Despite extensive questioning of Sarah's friends and family, evidence was limited. The case eventually grew cold, amplifying the community's fear as the murderer remained at large. Years crept by, but Sarah's murder continued to haunt her family and friends. Parents were concerned for the safety of their own children. Almost a decade after the crime, technological advancements in forensics allowed a revisitation of evidence from the crime scene. DNA samples were retested, and some new leads were generated. While authorities remained reticent about the particulars of this newfound evidence, they offered assurance that progress was being made. The hope for justice was rekindled in Sarah's grieving family. However, just as momentum seemed to be gathering, the investigation encountered an insurmountable impasse. Leads once again grew cold, leaving investigators disheartened and the community crestfallen. Speculations and theories swirled, with some guessing that the perpetrator had left the area and gone on the run to avoid facing consequences for their actions. Yet, one fact remained unwavering. Sarah's family and friends remained resolute in their pursuit of justice. Throughout the years, Sarah's story has featured prominently in various documentaries and true crime podcasts, rekindling interest in this case. Amateur sleuths and online communities have also taken up the mantle of investigation, driven by the hope of uncovering overlooked clues. The tragic fate of Sarah E. Neal is a testament to the elusiveness of justice, but equally a testament to the unwavering strength and determination of those who steadfastly refuse to let a case grow cold. As we draw this chapter to a close,
the fact that a 16-year-old could be killed just inside her home so heinously, just shot and that's it, and nothing else, makes me believe she had to have known who killed her. Because if she was sexually assaulted, actually even that doesn't rule out, because it could be a guy who felt like he never could get her. You know what I mean? Like, I have a feeling she had to have known who killed her.
the mystery endures. Who was responsible for the demise of Sarah E. Neal? Will her family ever find solace? And will the malefactor behind this heinous crime ever face justice? Should you possess any information related to Sarah Neal's tragic end, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Omaha, Nebraska Cold Case Unit at 402-444-5656 or the Omaha Police Department at 402-444-3765. A substantial reward of $25,000 awaits anyone whose information leads to the apprehension of Sarah's perpetrator. We may not have all the answers at present, but the story of Sarah's life and the mystery surrounding her untimely passing will remain an enduring beacon for those tireless souls committed to seeking justice for victims of unsolved crimes. Number 52. Jennifer Kessie. 17 years after vanishing, the case of Jennifer Kessie is still considered open and ongoing. Jennifer was 24 years old when she disappeared in January 2006. She was working a decent office job, had a healthy relationship with her boyfriend, and had just returned from a fun vacation. The last time anyone heard from Jennifer was on January 23, 2006. She spent her day at work as usual and then went home at the end of the day. Family members and friends recount several phone calls between them and Jennifer on the day of her disappearance, wherein she was simply updating them on how her trip went and sharing her day. She even called her boyfriend later that night, as she often did, to have a similar conversation and make plans for the following day. That final phone call was placed around 10 p.m. It's unclear what happened that night, as the timeline in this case is murky. The next morning, Jennifer didn't show up for work. It was unlike her to do a no-call, no-show. Her employers and co-workers spent the day trying to contact her. They called her family before the workday was over to report her absence in hopes that she was okay and perhaps missed work for a family emergency or medical reason that she hadn't been able to communicate. When her family also failed to make contact with the young victim, they set out on a trip to find her. The drive from her parents' home to Jennifer's condo in Orlando, Florida, took about 2 hours. Once they arrived, they inspected her apartment and found evidence that suggested she had been there that morning and went through her usual routine, getting ready for work. Officers were called to the scene. However, according to her parents, they didn't do their part to take the case seriously. Since there was no evidence in her apartment of a home invasion or altercation, the single officer who showed up brushed the family by saying Jennifer likely had a fight with her boyfriend and would show up eventually. Of course, this was no help to
She's 27 years old, right? Here's my confusion, right? If someone said to me, oh, she had a fight with a boyfriend, so she'll be back. Why would she leave her place that she lives in by herself if she had a fight with a boyfriend? That doesn't even add up. If she lived with a boyfriend, I'd understand that theory, but that doesn't add up in this situation. Doesn't add up at all.
To her worried family, and they took things into their own hands by organizing a search in the area, creating flyers to post up throughout the neighborhood. 2 days later, investigators finally got more seriously involved after realizing Jennifer wasn't going to return anytime soon. The first order of business for them was to collect any and all security footage from the condo property. Unfortunately, all they could find was a video of a man parking Jennifer's car in the condo lot before walking away. However, improbably, this footage also led to a dead end.
Of course, because that's a shitty camera. This is a shitty camera. 2006, y'all. I'd say y'all need to do better now, but that's shitty cameras now still. I don't know what the hell happened to security cameras, but those are shit.
Camera system used by the condos wasn't equipped to record video. Instead, it took images every few seconds when triggered by motion. As luck would have it, the suspect could barely be seen in the available shots because, as if it were perfectly timed, the suspect's face was covered by the fence in every picture. Police were only able to determine that the person of interest was around 5 foot 3 inches in height. Nothing else could be identified. The victim's family and the investigators who worked the case took the clips of the man as evidence that foul play was afoot. Officers searched Jennifer's vehicle, but no evidence was found inside. They did find a few valuables left behind, indicating the suspect was not motivated by robbery. These puzzle pieces only made the case more confusing the longer it went on. Jennifer Kessie still has not been found, but her family refuses to give up hope. Investigators have stated that the case is still open, and they have received countless leads over the years and have simply not found any of value. If you have any information, you may contact Orlando, Florida Crime Line at 800-423-8477. Number 51. The disappearance of Chad Gibson. Originally from West London, Chad Gibson originally relocated to Cornwall at 17, enticed by the outdoor life and the lure of the waves and long nature walks. Despite the breakdown in his relationship with his daughter's mother, Chad was very involved in his daughter's life and took pride in being a father. By December 2015, 32-year-old Chad was described as being happy and expectant, excitedly talking about moving closer to his daughter's school in Newquay. He also mentioned optimism about a woman he had recently met and was beginning to see. On the 19th of December, Chad's day began like any other. He left his St. Austell home at around 10:30 a.m., making his way to Newquay. By evening, he had been to the Central Pub, where he engaged in a conversation that would allegedly lead to a confrontation. This confrontation, with a man claiming to be the on-off boyfriend of the woman Chad had recently begun dating, led to a tension-filled situation that culminated in the pub's bathroom. Oddly enough, Chad was photographed by the group of men he had the confrontation with, a detail his mother finds peculiar and unsettling. The last known sighting of Chad was shortly before 6 p.m.
I agree. That's a little weird. He goes, then you take a picture of him? before a conversation breaks out, even if he's alive at the end of the conversation, you taking a picture making believe you give it to someone and be like, hey, put this guy down. Make this guy disappear so I can get back to the woman. Fucking insanity.
PM captured on CCTV as he walked up 4th Street towards Tower Road and Headland Road. Days later, when Chad failed to contact friends and family on Christmas Day, the alarm was raised and he was reported missing. Initially, the police were slow to act, believing the then father was simply enjoying the festivities of the Christmas period and would soon turn up. However, as days continued to pass and nobody had seen or heard from Chad, extensive searches began to take place. The confrontation in the Central Pub has been an event of significant interest from the beginning of the investigation. The nature of the altercation, combined with the unusual act of photographing Chad, has led to speculation about the involvement of the men Chad had conflict with that evening in his disappearance. However, without concrete evidence or witnesses coming forward with more information, these theories remain just that, theories. And all we know for sure is that Chad walked away from the pub, but where that walk took him, or what he met with after his departure, remains a mystery. In a cruel twist, Chad's mother Sharon was given false hope in August 2016 when police discovered human remains in Trigurion, a hamlet north of Newquay. However, DNA results later confirmed that they were not Chad's. Sharon's anguish is palpable. The uncertainty surrounding her son's fate is a heavy burden, one she hopes to lighten with answers. As years have gone by, she has continued to appeal to the public, urging those who might know something to come forward. If you have any information on the disappearance of Chad Gibson, please call the Devon and Cornwall Police at 0800-555-111. Number 50, the mysterious murder of Kanika Powell. Next, we're diving into the mysterious case of Kanika Powell, a young woman whose encounter with a mysterious stranger took a dark turn. Many unanswered questions remain in this case, and Kanika's loved ones are still on a quest for justice. 28-year-old Kanika Powell lived in Prince George's County in Maryland. She had a promising career, a loving family, and dreams of a bright future. But in the early hours of August 28, 2008, her life was brutally cut short in a senseless act of violence. The mystery began a few days earlier when Kanika called her mother to relay a chilling incident. On August 23rd, an unknown man knocked on her door and tried to access her apartment. He claimed to be an FBI agent, but these claims were unsubstantiated. Though he knew Kanika's name, she was suspicious and refused to let him in. 4 days later,
Yep, that's all I need to know. I'd be suspicious too. Someone's like, I'm an FBI agent, I know your thing, and I'm like, I can't identify you, you need to get stepping. Even when he leaves, I'm gonna be like, well, that's gonna be a problem for me in the future, I can tell.
Different man showed up. He claimed to have a package for Kanika. Again, she did not let him in. She told her mother about this second encounter and decided to take the day off work and run some errands. When she returned home, someone was waiting for her. Just steps away from her front door, Kanika was ambushed by an unknown assailant who opened fire. She was struck multiple times, and despite her desperate attempts to fight back, she tragically succumbed to her injuries. The investigation into Kanika Powell's murder was swift and intense. The police questioned friends, family, and neighbors, looking for any leads that might shed light on the identity of her killer. One of the most puzzling aspects of the case was the apparent lack of motive. Kanika wasn't involved in criminal activity, and there was no evidence of personal conflicts that might have led to her murder. She was described as a vivacious and kind-hearted woman who had no known enemies. So, who would want to harm her, and why? As investigators combed through the evidence, they uncovered surveillance footage from the apartment complex. The video showed
The thought also, they're like, that has to be a hit. Like, that's some hitman shit. If you're not involved in criminal activity, you're either involved with some type of, either you have pissed off someone who's involved with criminal shit, or that's a hit put out on you. For you to have two people come over your place, and then when someone's randomly there, when you come home one day, someone's just there ready to kill you, yeah, that's some hitman shit right there.
Showed a shadowy figure lurking near Kanika's car just before but the person's face was obscured, leaving detectives with more questions than answers. Despite the challenges, The police and Kanika's family were determined to find justice. They launched a public appeal for information, hoping that someone would come forward with crucial details about that night. Months turned into years, and the case grew colder. But Kanika's family refused to give up. They maintained a reward fund, hoping it would incentivize someone to come forward with vital information. Kanika's memory lives on through her family's quest for justice, and her tragic story reminds us of the importance of staying vigilant, especially as a young woman living alone. Please contact the Prince George's County Police Department if you have any information about her murder at 301-352-1200. Number 49, Lena Sadar kill. On December 20th, 2021, Zarmina Sadar Kill took her 2 children to their neighborhood park in a suburban area of San Antonio for a day of fun. They were at the park for a while as Zarmina watched her children run around with other kids, having an absolute blast. Zarmina walked away from the playground for just a few moments for reasons that remain unclear, and that's when things took a horrible turn. When she returned, she found her son playing as expected, but couldn't seem to spot her daughter, 4-year-old Lena Sadar Kiel. The mother searched the play area and picnic tables nearby in a panic. She quickly realized that something wasn't right. She began asking other parents at the park if they had seen the child. Some of the adults and children said that they had seen her there, but didn't notice her walking away or being picked up or approached by anyone. Witnesses offered to help in the search, but could not locate the girl or any signs of anything unusual. Finally, Zarmina decided enough was enough, and she contacted police. Officers arrived and combed through the neighborhood. Residents in the area were interviewed, but no one had not seen the girl or any suspicious activity that might be related to her disappearance. Unable to find the child, officers called in higher-up investigators who immediately enacted a public search and widespread investigation. The day turned to night, and there was still no sign of little Lena. The following day, footage from a neighbor's security camera was released to the public. The video showed Lena and her brother playing in the park. However, Lena eventually strays from the area and walks toward the street. She walked out of frame, and the most important piece of evidence thus far became another dead end for investigators and the worried family of the little girl.
That is so weird though. Like, why would she just get up and walk off away from the park, just start walking? What was she thinking?
The search went on for many months, and the area was combed from the forest to the nearby river. There was no sign of Lena anywhere. A little over a year after she vanished, the community held a vigil for Lena's 5th birthday. During this ceremony, investigators officially released an age progression sketch of the victim. In April 2023, Riaz Sadar Kil, Lena's father, agreed to a polygraph test. He was not considered a suspect, but with the case having no leads or evidence, detectives wanted to take steps to confirm that neither of the girl's parents were involved with her disappearance. Her mother wasn't asked for a test, but agreed she would willingly take one if needed. The results from those tests have not been publicized, but considering Riaz is not in custody, he is likely not a suspect. Lena's case was...
The mom is interesting because she did just get up. Remember, she did leave the thing for unknown reasons. Just leave the park. Then when she comes back, her child's gone. Like, she didn't leave her children unattended. Like, I know there are a bunch of adults there, but other adults aren't going to watch your kids most of the time. So it is interesting to me that she just did that.
Featured on a V program called On Patrol Live, thanks to the help of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. During the episode, they shared details of the case, as well as the last known CCTV footage of Lena. As of now, there have been no updates in the case. However, the Islamic Center of San Antonio has released a promised reward of $200,000 to anyone who can help solve the case. Additionally, Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of $50,000. If you have any information about Lena Sadar Kill or her disappearance, please contact the San Antonio Police Department at 1-210-207-7273 or any CMEC at 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678. Number 48, The disappearance of Luke Durban. Luke Durban was your typical teenager from Hollesley, Suffolk, in the United Kingdom, growing up amidst the countryside's calm. The buzz of the nearby town, Ipswich, often lured him in. Like countless other teens, the bright lights and nightlife there were too tempting to resist. On Thursday, May 11th, 2006, the 19-year-old had just finished work for the day and was making his way over to his friend Alex's home. Here, he left behind not just his motorbike, but also a backpack containing some of his personal belongings, which notably included his mobile phone. The evening saw Luke, Alex, and another friend named Zach immersing themselves in Ipswich's nightlife. As the night progressed, Alex decided to call it early, leaving Luke and Zach. However, Zach too lost touch with Luke after a trip to the bar at the Zest nightclub. Between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. on May 12th, Luke appeared on CCTV at the Ipswich railway station. His journey then led him across the town to the Hawk Express taxi rank, but he didn't have money on him for a fare, and even when offered a mobile phone, Luke declined to call home. The last confirmed sighting of Luke was captured on CCTV around 4 a.m. The footage showed him crossing the road in Dog's Head Street, seemingly in the direction of the bus station. As the sun rose the next morning, Luke was nowhere to be found. His family, initially hoping he might have crashed at a mate's place or just lost track of time, soon felt the cold grip of worry when they did not hear from the young man, when he didn't answer calls or texts, and when his personal items, including his cell phone, were discovered back at his friend Alex's place. Alarm bells started ringing. Luke's family reported him missing. The police swung into action, but Ipswich, with its myriad lanes, pubs, clubs, and nooks, wasn't making it easy. The initial phase of the investigation focused on retracing Luke's steps from that night. CCTV footage placed him at various spots throughout the night, and the last known footage of Luke was of him crossing a road in Dog's Head Street, heading towards the bus station. But after that, nothing. He simply vanished. Word spread quickly in the tight-knit community of Ipswich. Friends, acquaintances, and even strangers joined the search, handing out flyers.
The name Ipswich is just so weird. Every time I hear it, my brain just kind of like has a cringe moment. It's like Ipswich is a choice of a name.
Holding public appeals and scouring every possible place Luke might have gone. But despite these collective efforts, no solid leads emerged. While these are the confirmed events of the case, the mystery deepens when we weave in rumors and anecdotal information that have swirled around Ipswich regarding the disappearance of the young man. Suffolk, with its close-knit community, is no stranger to the grapevine, and often, hidden within the chatter and speculation, there are threads of truth. One such whisper suggests that Luke dabbled in small-time drug dealing, possibly involving substances like weed, pills, or cocaine. This rumor takes a darker turn, with the speculation that Luke had unsettled debts with drug dealers from Brixton. On the night Luke was in Ipswich,
Look, I'm going to be straight honest. He's a young man. It can't be ruled out, okay? It's just going to be on. It can't be ruled out. Not saying that's what it is, but it can't be ruled out as a possibility.
it's surmised that someone who knew these Brixton individuals spotted him. They then purportedly tracked Luke's movements until the dealers from Brixton arrived, taking advantage of the late hours' reduced traffic. Given Luke's state by the end of the night, it's believed he could have been easily coerced or forced into an unidentified vehicle. Notably, a silver or white Volvo was seen near the location of Luke's last sighting. Anchoring these speculations are the lived experiences of those who called Ipswich home during that era. Ipswich's intimate nature, where everyone seemingly knew everyone, made it fertile ground for small-time drug deals. The town's proximity to London also meant a looming presence of London's criminal underbelly, with ties purportedly extending to infamous gangs like the Essex Boys. Clubs like Zest were not just hubs of entertainment, but also hosts of violent incidents reportedly linked to conflicts spilling over from the London streets. A significant observation lies in the team of security staff operating in Ipswich during this period. Connected through the local council, these personnel maintained communication with each other, alerting their peers about potential troublemakers or those missing throughout the city. However, the underbelly of this setup was more sinister. Many security staff members were allegedly involved in drug-related activities themselves. either consuming, selling, or both. Connections to London's drug world, an environment fueled by a potent mix of drugs, steroids, and the relentless pressure to maintain a reputation, could lead to violent outcomes over seemingly minor issues.
Sorry, I had to go to the bathroom and that, so I had to cut it and go now.
Luke's case, even after all these years, remains open, teeming with numerous narratives, each as compelling as the next. The quest for truth continues, and investigators hope to one day provide clarity and closure to a community and family that have been left only with doubt and mystery. Anyone who has information regarding Luke's disappearance is asked to submit this via the major investigation team's online portal or by calling 01473613513. Number 47. The Unsolved Mystery of Baby Madison. In 2016, a highway worker made a grim discovery along Interstate 45 in Madisonville, Texas, a suitcase containing the lifeless body of a girl around 4 years old, wrapped in a pink towel. This child would come to be known as Baby Madison, and her case would haunt investigators for years. Today, we delve into this heart-wrenching true crime story, exploring the latest developments in the quest to reveal her killer. Law enforcement launched a comprehensive investigation in an attempt to identify the child and bring her perpetrator to justice as soon as her remains were found. Finding an unidentified victim is tragic in any case, but the fact that Baby Madison was so young meant that the community rallied around the investigative team, hopeful for quick justice. However, despite their relentless efforts, years passed with no progress in identifying Baby Madison. The case went cold until 2019, when the Madison County Sheriff's Office decided to take advantage of more advanced DNA testing technology. Baby Madison's race is unknown, but she appears to be Caucasian or Hispanic with Native American lineage. She was found with a feeding tube. Investigators are still looking for any information that could bring them closer to finding out who this child is and what happened to her. Her case is a reminder.
The thought that just, like, again, this is another thing, a thought of a 4-year-old just be, like, have her life innocently taken with heartlessness, and no one knows who she is or what. Oh, it's so fucking heartbreaking.
That the most vulnerable among us can still be betrayed by those who are supposed to care for them. Number 46. Alicia Aptoloff Boyle. This clip may seem like mundane footage of a couple casually shopping in a supermarket. However, it is actually the last known footage of a woman who went missing just a few days later. Alicia Aptoloff Boyle vanished from her town Ashton-under-Lyne, Tameside, Greater Manchester, in the United Kingdom in January 2022. These images were taken on January 14th, and they match up with the last time Alicia's debit card was used. Later that same day, evidence showed that Alicia and her unidentified partner traveled to Sunderland Bridge in Croxdale in Durham. From that day to the next time they were spotted, their whereabouts and activities remain unknown. Evidence from January 22nd proved that the couple went from Durham to Glossop in Derbyshire. Again, their reasons for such travel are unknown. After so many days, Alicia was finally reported missing by her family, who had not heard from her. The investigation found that she was still traveling with the unidentified man, who has been named a person of interest, in a Volkswagen Passat. This vehicle could have been a great way to track the travels of this couple. As luck would have it, though, the car was later found abandoned along the side of a highway near the couple's last known location. It was thoroughly investigated, but yielded no concrete evidence. Alicia's family stated that she would never run from her life willingly, and that they had no idea she was involved with a man at all. From what little details were made available in the security camera footage, her family failed to identify her partner. If you have any information on this case, please contact Crime Stoppers anonymously at 0800-555-111. Number 45. The Disappearance of Amy Bradley. On March 21, 1998, 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley, her parents Ron and Iva, and brother Brad set sail on a once-in-a-lifetime cruise paid for by Ron's boss. On board the ship, Amy's tattoos and captivating presence drew the attention of those on board, including ship staff. A few offered to show her an Aruban restaurant, coincidentally the same one Natalie Holloway would be last seen at in the coming years. 3 nights into their trip, during a stop in Aruba, the passengers were getting ready for a black tie event for the evening entertainment. However, that night's formal dinner on board brought some discomfort. Amy and Iva were unnerved by overly attentive ship staff, and photographs taken of Amy earlier in the day went missing. The evening saw the family partaking in the ship's entertainment, with Amy chatting extensively with the ship's bassist, Alistair Douglas, known as Yellow. The siblings concluded the night on their balcony after leaving the party, with Brad assuming his sister would retire soon after he decided to turn in. The following morning, Amy's absence stirred concern. Despite the family's frantic search and pleas for assistance, the crew's initial response was hindered by the ship's tight schedule. The bassist, Yellow, further aroused suspicion with his strangely timed condolences to Brad. The ship's decision to allow passengers to disembark at one of their stops without a thorough search diminished hopes of finding Amy on board. Determined, the Bradleys chose to remain to search for Amy in Curaçao while the ship left port. Days later, the FBI intervened, interviewing crew members aboard the ship. Contrary to claims by Royal Caribbean, it came to light that an exhaustive search of the ship had not been conducted. While cruise officials surmised Amy may have accidentally or intentionally gone overboard, both the FBI and the Bradleys were skeptical of this theory based on Amy's future plans, her enthusiastic disposition, and her profound fear of the ocean. Suspicions surrounding Amy's last known interactions intensified, particularly her encounter with Yellow. An eyewitness claimed to have seen the two together shortly before Amy vanished. A chance encounter with a local taxi driver in Curaçao encouraged thoughts that Amy might still be on the island. Brad even believed he momentarily heard her voice emanate from a nearby van, though that pursuit ended in disappointment. Returning to the U.S., the Bradleys continued to focus their efforts on searching for Amy. Refusing to believe the Royal Caribbean narrative that Amy had simply fallen overboard, they collaborated with global authorities, hired private investigators, and established a dedicated website and hotline, remaining unwavering in their hope of reuniting with Amy. 5 months after Amy's disappearance, David Carmichael, a Canadian computer expert, contacted the family and claimed he'd seen Amy with 2 men at Porto Marie Beach in Curaçao. David's accurate description of Amy, including a unique Tasmanian devil tattoo on her shoulder, caught the family's attention. One of the men's descriptions resembled that of Yellow. David recounted seeing Amy being forcibly taken into a cafe by the 2 men. Later, in court, David swore under oath that he was certain the woman he'd seen was Amy. Another witness, only known as E, testified she saw Amy with Yellow on the ship's upper deck the night she vanished, and he had given her a dark drink. Speculation arose that Amy might have been drugged and kidnapped by staff who knew the ship well. The FBI questioned Yellow, who denied any involvement and passed a polygraph. Although dismissed from his job for mingling with a passenger, there wasn't enough evidence to link him directly to Amy's disappearance. In 1999, an ex-U.S. Special Forces private investigator named Frank Jones approached the family, claiming he could rescue Amy with a team. He said a cook, Judith Margaretha, had spotted Amy at a guarded housing complex. Jones regularly updated the Bradleys, telling them to be patient. The family paid Jones over $210,000, but eventually grew suspicious. They were heartbroken to learn they'd been scammed by Jones. The evidence he'd provided was fabricated, and he'd never served in the military. Jones was sentenced to 5 years in jail. In January 1999, U.S. military officer William Hefner says that he met a woman claiming to be Amy at a notorious hotel in Willemstad. He directed her to a nearby ship, but didn't help further. In 2001, realizing her identity after seeing a magazine cover, he reported the encounter, but the hotel had already burned down. In 2005, a witness reported seeing Amy with 4 men in a Barbados department store restroom, but attempts to retrace her steps failed. One of the most unsettling revelations is the discovery of certain images on an adult escort website. These images display a woman who bears a notable resemblance to Amy, raising many questions and hopes about her whereabouts. The origin of these images can be traced back to September 2005, when an anonymous email was sent to the website highscience.com. This email directed attention to two photographs on an adult site where the woman, referred to as Jazz, appeared to resemble Amy Bradley. It was implied that she might be working or was coerced into working as an escort in the Caribbean. The photographs, showing a scantily clad woman, captured significant attention, particularly after being broadcast on the Dr. Phil television program. What amplified the intrigue was a forensic detective's involvement. After carefully examining the images and comparing them to Amy's photographs taken shortly before her mysterious vanishing, the detective asserted with conviction that the woman in the controversial images was indeed Amy. He was so confident in this assessment that he even claimed he'd stake his career on the accuracy of his identification. However, as is often the case in such mysterious circumstances, there were doubters. Skeptics voiced concerns about the images, pointing out potential inconsistencies. For instance, they noted that the hairstyle of the woman in the image seemed more in line with 1990s trends rather than those of the 2000s, meaning the image is more likely from before Amy was last seen. Despite the strong resemblance and the high stakes placed on the images by experts, the trail eventually ran cold. 12 years after Amy was last seen alive, she was declared deceased in March 2010, with nobody ever found. If you have any information concerning this case, please contact your local law enforcement authorities or submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. Number 44. 10-year-old Lindsay Baum's unsolved murder. 10-year-old Lindsay Baum's tragic death is a mystery that haunts her family.
Who in the hell takes the innocent life of a 10-year-old? A 10-year-old, really? That is so fucked up. A fucking 10-year-old?
Family and community to this day. Lindsay Baum, a bright and vivacious young girl, went missing on June 26, 2009, in McCleary, a quiet town in Washington state. It is a day her loved ones look back on with sadness, a day that changed her community forever. Lindsay had embarked upon the short journey home from a friend's house when she was snatched from the familiar streets of her neighborhood. Though she'd made the journey countless times before, she never made it back to her home that day. Her family was immediately concerned and started to scour the neighborhood for Lindsay before alerting authorities. An exhaustive search operation was launched immediately, involving law enforcement agencies from across the region. The community rallied together, posting flyers, organizing search parties, and praying for Lindsay's safe return. But as days turned into weeks, the search for Lindsay evolved into a complex investigation. Despite hundreds of leads and interviews, there were no clues as to her whereabouts. It was as if she had vanished without a trace. The disappearance of Lindsay Baum became a national news story, drawing attention from concerned citizens and well-wishers across the country. Her family clung to the hope that their beloved Lindsay would be found and brought back home. Tragically, after an agonizing 9 years of uncertainty and hope, a small piece of Lindsay's remains were discovered on September 7, 2017, by hunters in a remote, densely wooded area in Kittitas County, nearly 100 miles away from McCleary. The rest of her body has never been found. The discovery of Lindsay's remains marked a grim turning point in the case, changing it from a missing person investigation to a murder investigation. The investigative team, led by local authorities and the FBI, re-examined the case from every angle. They retraced Lindsay's last known movements, analyzed evidence, and interviewed witnesses, hoping to uncover the truth about her disappearance and murder. In their pursuit of justice for Lindsay, investigators faced numerous challenges. The remote and densely forested terrain where her remains were found had likely obscured crucial
I'm sorry for yawning so much. I'm very tired today for some reason.
evidence for years. And with so much time passed, memories had faded, and potential witnesses had forgotten important details or become unreachable. Despite these challenges, law enforcement maintained their commitment to solving this heartbreaking case. They conducted numerous interviews and eliminated potential suspects, but they were never able to identify Lindsay's killer. Lindsay's family, devastated by the loss of their beloved daughter and sister, continued to push for answers. They have offered a substantial reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of her killer, hoping that someone, somewhere, holds the key to solving this heart-wrenching mystery. The murder of Lindsay Baum remains one of the most haunting unsolved cases in Washington state's history. Her family and community still search for closure, a resolution that would bring them the justice they so desperately seek. As technology advances and new leads emerge, there remains hope that one day, the truth about Lindsay's disappearance and murder will come to light. Until then, her memory lives on, serving as a stark reminder of the enduring quest for justice in the world of cold cases. If you possess any relevant information regarding this unsolved case, please contact the FBI's Seattle field office at 206-622-0460. Number 43, Madalena Kokari, the case of missing 11-year-old.
I'm pretty sure I said this the first time I saw this in one of the top of detail. I can't say that name. I'm never going to try to.
Madalena Kokari is a tragic one that still remains unsolved. Madalena went missing from her home in Cornelius, North.
I can say Madalena, but if I try to say the last name, something else is going to come out. Some other weird word that's going to not sound at all right is going to come out.
North Carolina, on November 23rd, 2022. This case lacks significant evidence, and many of the details surrounding her disappearance are unclear, unconfirmed, or rumors that were later proven false. On the morning of November 21st, security camera footage from Madalena's school bus captured a glimpse of her at the end of the day. She had reported to school that morning as usual. While leaving the bus with other students, nothing seemed out of place concerning Madalena. This would be the last time she was seen in public, and possibly the actual day she went missing. It's hard to piece together a timeline on the case because her parents failed to report her missing right away. Madalena never returned to school the following day.
That's always going to make me suspicious. Once the reveal all the family didn't report her missing right away, when family didn't report her missing, immediately I'm like, well, you're suspects, immediately.
Weeks went by without her presence, and the employees at Bailey Middle School made countless attempts to contact Deanna, Madalena's mother. Their calls went unanswered, and there seemed to be no urgency on the mother's end in regard to the whereabouts of her daughter. Finally,
oh, she knows where she is. Oh, I'm now certain that mother and father know exactly where she is.
on December 15th, Diana visited the school and told the office that her daughter had been missing. She offered few further details about the case. Diana said that her daughter left their house on November 23rd to play with a neighbor and never returned. After this interaction, school employees learned that despite telling them about Madalena's disappearance, Diana had failed to contact the police. So, the school stepped in and reported the young girl missing. A search party was formed.
The school boy's sitting there like, wait a minute, she still hasn't contacted police? They're like, yeah, apparently she hasn't contacted. Like, fucking call the police for her. Fuck.
And went to work. Just a few days after finally making the report, Madalena's mother and her 60-year-old stepfather, Christopher Palmeter, were arrested on charges of failing to report a disappearance.
I'd say.
Eventually, the search for the young girl expanded from her hometown to the entire county. Searchers focused specifically on forested regions and secluded properties, in case Madalena wandered off and got lost or was dumped by a perpetrator in the wilderness. After the fact, witnesses in the area shared that they had seen Diana and her car around the local forested areas for several days in a row around the time of Madalena's disappearance. Still, this lead didn't beget any new evidence, and they still failed to find any trace of the girl. While Diana and Christopher are set to face trial this year, a wild interview with Madalena's grandmother twisted things in a shocking way. She came forward after the arrests and claimed that Christopher had sold Madalena into human trafficking. She said he had been drugging Madalena and Diana for several months. Oddly enough, when Diana was initially
Alright, that's a turn. That is a turn I did not see coming. I'll admit, I didn't see that coming. So the grandmother alleges that the husband is drugging the daughter, her, Madalena, and their mother, and also was sold Madeleine into human trafficking.
Apprehended, they found her in possession of fentanyl. While she claimed she found it in the shower, it did lend credence to the grandmother's theory. She believed that Christopher drugged Madalena and sold her for $5 million. Although she was certain this was the case,
I mean, is there any evidence he even has that amount of money? That's a shitload amount of money. $5 million?
there just wasn't enough evidence to support it or any other theory. This case is still open and active, and the footage has been released to aid in witnesses recognizing the victim. Her remaining family still holds on to hope that the beloved child will be found safe. If you have any information on Madalena's whereabouts, or this case in general, please call the Cornelius Police Department at 704-892-7773. Number 42. The disappearance of Prisma Reyes. Born in the sun-soaked town of Veracruz, Mexico, Prisma Reyes' life began on a tragic note, as her father died when she was very young. But life moved on, with her mother Lilia remarrying and introducing Dan Fuchs as Prisma's stepfather. This new chapter led the family to Mesquite, Texas, and Prisma became a U.S. citizen at a young age. Ambitious Prisma had dreams of navigating the legal world as a paralegal, but life's twists and turns led her to the National Guard and eventually a job as a receptionist in 2018. A single mother, Prisma has spent months in and out of a troubled relationship with Ryan, an older man. Their past was marred by violence and abuse, but they were attempting to rekindle their relationship in 2019 when Prisma was 26 years old. However, a dark cloud seemed to hang over Prisma. She told friends that she felt the need to buy a handgun, voiced concerns about being stalked, and even discovered her Jeep tires slashed one day. These events culminated on April 17, 2019. That day, Prisma was at work at a car dealership where she had recently started a receptionist position. During her lunch break, she decided to visit E-Bar Tex-Mex to meet Ryan. Based on the CCTV footage from the bar, it seems Prisma lingered there long after Ryan left. Later, an altercation arose. The cause is unclear, but it escalated to the point where the bartender had to cut off Prisma's tab. After that incident, her actions became even more perplexing. Exiting E-Bar, Prisma got embroiled in a shocking road rage incident where witnesses reported she brandished her handgun at them. For someone with a military background and a deep respect for firearms, friends reported that this act was a departure from her typical behavior. Those close to her believe something at E-Bar must have triggered her escalated emotional state. After the road rage event, Prisma's path became a topic of speculation. With the assistance of a former investigator now close to the family, her next steps unraveled. After the tumultuous events following her visit to E-Bar, Prisma headed to the Ross apartment complex where Ryan was living. CCTV footage shows Prisma parking her Jeep outside the parking garage. Moments later, she's captured dashing behind a car to bypass the security gate, seemingly in a hurry or in distress. Subsequent footage reveals her by the elevator, phone pressed to her ear, appearing visibly irritated or upset. As investigators piece the timeline together, they determined she was speaking with Ryan at this time. Shortly after, Prisma places another call, this time with a friend. This conversation, too, becomes intense, with Prisma's emotions escalating before the conversation ends. Moments later, after leaning against a pillar, Prisma walks away, out of the camera's view, and effectively, out of everyone's life. Alarm bells really started ringing when Prisma didn't pick up her son from the babysitter at the end of the day, something entirely out of character for her. Further investigation revealed one last call was placed from Prisma's phone after she was last seen on camera, but who was on the other end remains a mystery. Speculation runs rampant regarding Prisma's sudden and bewildering disappearance. Some think she may have been drugged at the bar, which could account for her unusual behavior. Others point fingers at Ryan, doubting she ever left the complex. Then there's the disheartening theory of human trafficking, a possibility that's sadly on the table. 4 years since the day the young...
I'll say this. I guarantee she was calling mine like, hey, come let me in. And he'd probably like, I'm not home. She's like, no, come let me in. She's like, no, I can't. I'm not home. What are you doing? I'm not here. Did I just still come? I can't come like you want because I'm not home.
Mom disappeared, and numerous theories continue to be speculated about, but the truth remains evasive. While many hold on to hope that Prisma may be found, others can't help but fear the worst. The quest for Prisma persists, driven by the desire to bring closure to a grieving family and a young son left behind. Anyone with information related to Rees's disappearance is urged to contact the Mesquite Police Department at 972-285-6336. Anonymous tips can also be submitted online via North Texas Crime Stoppers or by calling its tip line at 877-373-8477. Number 41. The disappearance of Jim Thompson in Malaysia. The wealthy American silk merchant.
This is gonna go for a while because I'm going till 30, which is where? Hold on. So 30 ends. So hold on. 30. Yeah, so 1 hour 33 is when we'll be. At that point is when because that's when number 30 starts, and that's when this video will end.
Who made a name for himself as the King of Silk in Thailand, does not fit the profile of the everyday missing person. It has been more than half a century since Jim Thompson disappeared in the jungles of Malaysia, but the case still baffles investigators and piques the curiosity of the public. Jim Thompson was an American businessman and former military officer who gained fame as a renowned architect and designer. He is perhaps best known for reviving the Thai silk industry and is often referred to as the Silk King of Thailand. But in March 1967, while on a vacation in the Cameron Highlands of Malaysia, Jim Thompson vanished, leaving behind a mystery that has endured for decades. Concerned for Jim's safety after he did not contact loved ones, a massive search operation was launched. Local villagers, police, and military personnel scoured the dense jungle, but there was no sign of the Silk King. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the search became increasingly desperate. The circumstances surrounding Jim Thompson's disappearance were
What, he sell someone a rogue tie? Sell someone a rogue tie? Someone got so angry about that tie wasn't being as good as they wanted it to be, they just took him out? What the hell?
peculiar. There were no witnesses, no signs of a struggle, and no evidence to suggest foul play. His passport and belongings were found undisturbed in his cottage. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. The disappearance of Jim Thompson sparked a media frenzy, both in Malaysia and abroad. The Silk King's mysterious vanishing act made headlines around the world, and theories about his fate abounded. One theory suggested that Jim had fallen victim to a wild animal or succumbed to the perils of the jungle, but this seemed unlikely given his experience in the region and the absence of any physical evidence of such a fate. Another theory proposed that he had been abducted by communist insurgents who were active in the area at the time, but no ransom demands were ever made, and there was no concrete evidence to support this theory. Some speculated that Jim Thompson had staged his own disappearance, perhaps to escape financial troubles or personal problems. However, those who knew him well found this theory highly implausible, citing his deep-rooted ties to his business and the people he loved. Over the years, there have been sporadic reports of sightings and alleged clues, but none have led to a breakthrough. Jim Thompson's disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in Southeast Asia. The Silk King's legacy lives on, not only in the beautiful silk he helped popularize, but also in the enduring mystery of his disappearance. To this day, theories about what happened to Jim Thompson abound, and his case is the subject of countless books, documentaries, and investigations. Was he the victim of a terrible accident, foul play, or did he choose to vanish into obscurity for reasons known only to him? The truth may never be known, and Jim Thompson's disappearance remains a testament to the enigmatic nature of unsolved mysteries. As we ponder the fate of the Silk King, we are reminded that sometimes, even in the most beautiful and tranquil places, darkness can descend, leaving behind a riddle that refuses to be solved. Number 40. Delano Burks. On November 12, 2022, 26-year-old Delano Burks met up with a group of friends for a night out on the town in Houston, Texas. The group visited a few spots and had more than a few drinks. The friends were cruising from party to party in Delano's car. All was well until just before 1 a.m. when Delano was last seen by his friends. According to their story, they stopped at McIntyre's bar so Delano could use the restroom. He entered the establishment while the others waited in the car. It's unclear how much time passed, but eventually, the group decided that Delano wasn't coming back out, so they continued on their way in his car. Apparently, they assumed he wanted to stay there and would get an Uber home. Sadly, that's not what happened at all. A short while after he...
So it never crossed y'all's mind to go into the bar to make sure that's the case? It never crossed your mind to just go into the bar, find him, ask him, hey, are you staying here? Because if you want to stay here, we can head out in your car if you're going to catch an Uber. And you're like, yeah, I want to stay. I'm going to stay there. And you're like, okay. And then you go about your way. You just assumed it, and it turns out he was missing because you probably started getting missing because y'all left him at a bar.
Arrived, the bartender working that night reported that Delano was asked to leave because he was too drunk and needed to be cut off. A series of security cameras in the vicinity recorded the moments after Delano left the bar. He can be seen clearly stumbling around, nearly falling several times. As he stumbled through the streets, there were times he picked up his pace and began glancing around as though he thought he was being followed, although no one was there. After the victim's family reviewed the footage, they believed that he was in distress and likely afraid, but it is not clear what might have frightened him. His family also believed that he may have been drugged. It was later reported that after the CCTV footage was captured, his phone died. Investigators suspect it may have been possible he had already lost his ID and wallet. None of Delano's personal items were ever located. When he didn't arrive home the following day, Delano's family and friends began to worry. It was very unlike him to just disappear without calling anyone. His wife and family tried to contact him, but to no avail. His friends, who expected him to come pick up his car, also could not contact him. Eventually, it became obvious that something was very wrong, and the police were called. An investigation was opened, and a search party was assembled to travel through the Houston bars the group had patronized that night, trying to retrace Delano's steps and obtain any witness statements. Every step led to a dead end until 2 weeks later. Delano Burks's remains were found floating in the Houston Ship Channel, about 15 miles away from where he was last seen. While this walk is possible, it would have taken energy and stamina, which most believe a drunk man who was having as much trouble walking as Delano appeared to that night would not have. It is also possible, according to investigators, that he could have fallen into the bayou near the bar and been swept by waves to the ship channel, but of course, the exact point where he would have fallen in is unknown. There is another theory that perhaps he caught a ride from someone and things went south. An autopsy failed to confirm a specific cause of death, but it was originally deemed an accident. Delano's family, desperate for answers, requested a second autopsy. They wanted to test their theory that their loved one had drugs in his system or was assaulted or attacked. The exam found that he had many bruises, but none of them would have been fatal. As for drugs, the family was told that something was found in his blood. This left his family yearning for more answers.
That would piss me off if I'm like, can you guys test for drugs? See if my theory's right. And they're like, well, something was in his system. What? What was in his system? Can't tell you that. Yes, you fucking can. Yes, you absolutely can tell me what was in his dip. What did you find in his blood?
His official cause of death is still unknown, and his case remains open. If you have any information on what may have happened to Delano Burks, you are encouraged to contact his sister via email at kj_interest@yahoo.com. Number 39. The murders of Karen and Michael Reinert. In the early hours of Monday, June 25, 1979, police in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area received an unsettling call. An unidentified man reported finding a woman, whom he described as sick, in the trunk of a car at a motel in Swatero Township, located midway between Harrisburg and Hershey. However, when officers arrived at the scene shortly after 5:30 a.m., The grim reality was far worse than initially described by the caller. The woman wasn't merely sick, she was deceased, with estimates placing her time of death as a full day before she was discovered. Her naked body, cruelly dumped in the trunk of a deserted Plymouth, bore evidence of trauma prior to her death. As the day wore on, the police embarked on the task of identifying her. They soon realized she was a mother, Susan Reinert, who had mysteriously disappeared and been reported missing over the weekend. Strangely, her two children, Karen and Michael, who had disappeared with her, were nowhere to be found at the crime site, as if they'd vanished into thin air. The shocking discovery sent tremors through the community. The initial examination offered more questions than answers. There was no sign of a struggle outside the car, leading investigators to believe that Susan had either been lured into the vehicle or had been moved there post-mortem. Throughout the day, detectives began gathering evidence and piecing together Susan's last known movements. Friends, family, and colleagues were interviewed, painting a picture of the hours leading up to her disappearance. Theories began to form, but concrete leads were scant, and investigators became more desperate to piece together the puzzle and find Susan's children. As the investigation unfurled, it became more evident just how deeply woven this web was. Two key figures emerged from Susan's professional life: Dr. J.C. Smith, the former principal of Upper Merion High School, and William S. Bradfield Jr., Susan's colleague and secret lover. Susan and Bradfield, both English teachers at the school they worked at, had a romantic relationship, leading her to name him as the beneficiary of her estate and life insurance, a decision she made, believing they were destined to eventually marry. The connection between Susan's murder and her financial legacy was evident, with Bradfield standing to benefit a whopping $730,000 from her estate. Motives of greed were hard to ignore. Investigators began to be even more suspicious of Bradfield's involvement, with a subsequent discovery in his prison cell, years after both men had been convicted of colluding in the killing. Amidst his possessions, investigators found a chilling photograph developed in 1986. The image portrayed a stone marker that eerily resembled a hooded figure surrounded by fallen leaves and set against a wooded backdrop. Many speculated this marker indicated the final resting place of Karen and Michael, a potential clue to authorities and the public alike. The connection between Bradfield and Smith further tangled the narrative. Smith, despite being convicted in 1986, saw his conviction overturned in 1992 after the appeals court cited improper testimonies and alleged that crucial evidence was withheld from his defense. Yet, both Smith and Bradfield maintained their innocence until their deaths, even as they pointed fingers at one another during their respective trials. Yet, the haunting photo remained. When it was released to the public a decade after being found, tips flooded in, but the exact location of the stone marker remains unknown to this day. Trooper Brian Krause of the Pennsylvania State Police, the lone investigator still attached to the case, acknowledges the possibility of a third person having intimate knowledge of the Reinert murders. This individual could be the missing link to what truly happened to Karen and Michael. The Reinert family's story remains one of Pennsylvania's most chilling mysteries. With its maze of connections, questionable motives, and the unsettling photograph that might hold the key to finding the remains of two innocent children, the case continues to baffle and intrigue. As the quest for answers persists, Krause urges anyone with information about the Reinert children's whereabouts to come forward. The truth, though it may be elusive, is out there. Anyone with information about what happened to Karen and Michael Reinert is asked to call the Pennsylvania State Police at 717-671-7537. Number 38. The Curious Mystery of Agatha Christie's 11-Day Disappearance. On the evening of December 4th, 1926, Agatha Christie left her home, called Styles, in Sunningdale, Berkshire, bidding her daughter Rosalind good night. It was a seemingly ordinary night, but Agatha's actions over the next 11 days would become an enduring mystery that continues to spark discussion to this day. The disappearance of one of the most famous mystery writers in the world made headlines worldwide, and the public was captivated by the unfolding drama. Speculation ran rampant, with theories ranging from amnesia to foul play. 11 long days after her disappearance, the then 36-year-old Agatha Christie was finally found. She was located at the Swan Hydropathic Hotel in Harrogate, nearly 200 miles from her home. She was registered at the hotel under the false name of Teresa Neal. So, what happened during those 11 days? Theories abound, but there is no definitive answer. Some believe it was an elaborate publicity stunt to promote her novels, while others suspect a temporary breakdown or an attempt to frame her husband for her murder. It later came to light that her husband, Carl Archibald Christie, was having an affair, which Agatha was all too aware of. One theory suggests that Agatha suffered a genuine case of fugue state or dissociative amnesia, a rare condition in which a person temporarily loses their sense of identity and memory. Agatha's reappearance did little.
God, that must be awkward. That must be really bizarre to go through. A moment where you, for a short period of time, forget who you are, what you like, what you do, forget everything about yourself, and it just all comes back to you. That'd be so damn weird.
To clear up the mystery, she said that she had no recollection of the events leading up to her disappearance, claiming amnesia. To this day, her vanishing act remains one of the most perplexing unsolved puzzles in literary history. The disappearance had a lasting impact on Agatha's life. Her marriage to Archie eventually ended in divorce. Despite the personal turmoil, she continued to write prolifically, becoming one of the best-selling authors of all time. Her novels continued to captivate readers, but she remained intensely private in her personal life. The curious mystery of Agatha Christie's 11-day disappearance remains a testament to the enduring allure of unsolved puzzles. Whether it was a carefully crafted riddle or a genuine case of amnesia, we may never truly know. Agatha Christie's legacy as the Queen of Mystery lives on, not only in her novels, but also in the captivating questions in her own life. Her disappearance remains an ongoing tale of intrigue, one that continues to seize the imaginations of readers and mystery enthusiasts worldwide. Number 37, Kiera Coles. The case of missing Kiera Coles, according to one of the head investigators on her case, is in limbo. According to Lieutenant William Sveiler, her case is both cold and open simultaneously. This means that while there has been a dearth of useful evidence found, investigators are still actively searching for leads in the case in the hopes of bringing the young woman home. Kiera was a 26-year-old postal worker in Chicago when she went missing on October 2, 2018. At the time of her disappearance, she was 3 months pregnant. Thanks to a variety of footage caught on security cameras, investigators were able to cobble together a timeline of events. Earlier on the day of Kiera's disappearance, her mom, Karen Phillips, spoke with her daughter on the phone while she was out shopping for baby clothes. She reported that she didn't think there was anything unusual about the call. Sadly, that was the last time Karen spoke to her daughter. Later that day, cameras captured Kiera returning home and unpacking her shopping haul. A few hours passed by before a mysterious man, someone police considered to be a person of interest, was seen entering the residence. A short time later, both the man and Kiera left the building and took off in Kiera's car. Around 10:43 p.m., footage from a nearby ATM captured Kiera making 2 withdrawals, totaling about $400. The pair then drove off again. Within another 30 minutes, Kiera's car was seen parking in an empty lot on the other side of town from the initial ATM footage. This time, the man exited the passenger seat. No one exited from the driver's seat. Most theories suggest that the man slid across the front seat and then repositioned the driver's side seat to make it seem like a smaller person was driving. Footage collected from the following day shows the unknown man driving up to Kiera's residence in her car. He parks it nearby, enters the building, and leaves a short time later carrying a bundle of unidentified items. He then drives off in his own vehicle, which had been parked there overnight. That evening, after not hearing from her daughter in about 24 hours, Karen reported Kiera missing. As the search began, Karen went to her daughter's home to meet with investigators and join in on the work. While she was there, Kiera's boyfriend and the possible father of her child, Josh Simmons, was there to help. He told everyone that he hadn't seen Kiera in many days. Police reviewed the CCTV footage of Kiera and the mysterious man and could not identify a person of interest so turned to the public for assistance. However, in an interview, Karen shared that she recognized the suspect as Josh Simmons. Police called him in for questioning. According to Lieutenant William Sviler, Simmons gave a series of excuses and accounts, which seemed to change each time. There wasn't enough evidence to hold or charge him, but most believe he is responsible for Kiera's disappearance. Josh ended up moving out of state, and there is still not enough evidence in the case to charge him or any other suspect. To this day, Kiera Cole's whereabouts are unknown. Anyone with information about the disappearance of Coles is asked to contact Chicago police at 833-408-0069 or 312-746-7330 or online at cpdtip.com. Number 36. The disappearance of Dalen Pua. The island of Oahu, with its tropical allure and historical significance, has a mystery ingrained in its lush landscape, the Haiku Stairs, or the Stairway to Heaven. While many have braved its forbidden steps to bask in the mesmerizing views, none have left an imprint on the island's psyche like Dalen Moke Pua. February 27, 2015, started like any other day. 18-year-old Moke departed from the comforting confines of his grandmother's home in Waianae with...
I'd love to go to those stairways to heaven thing. I'd love to go to that. I'm going out with people. I ain't stupid. I'm going with people. But I love to do it.
the promise of adventure ahead. Born and nurtured on the Big Island, Moke had always been enchanted by the tales and beauty of the Haiku Stairs. Despite the legends and warnings surrounding the stairs, the 3,122 steps beckoned him, but it was one digital imprint amidst Oahu's panoramic vistas that transformed a tale of adventure into a chilling mystery. At around 11 a.m., a series of images were posted on social media from Moke's phone. They depicted the usual breathtaking views and the thrill of a young adventurer, but one stood out from the rest, particularly after Moke lost contact with friends and family. Investigators and loved ones circled back to this photo as they tried to unravel what had happened to the young man. In this particular photo, set against the backdrop of the verdant mountains and mist, a barely discernible figure lurked. The man, whose features were indistinct, seemed inconspicuously hidden amidst the foliage, peering out as if observing Moke. This mysterious silhouette raised a plethora of questions. Was this man just another hiker, accidentally caught in Moke's frame? Or was there a more insidious intent behind his presence? Why was he hidden, camouflaged almost, amidst the bushes, especially on a trail known for its picturesque views? If he was an innocent traveler, why had he not come forward, especially when the image garnered media attention? The discovery of this eerie figure deepened the mystery of Moke's disappearance. As his grandmother Martha's initial worry turned into a heart-wrenching panic, the island community rallied together. Search parties, encompassing local fire departments, volunteers, drone operators, and even the might of the U.S. Navy, scoured the vast expanse around the Haiku Stairs. 2 hikers reported hearing whispered cries for help around the time of Moke's disappearance, which only added to the eeriness. While the search was relentless and extensive, Oahu offered no answers. Days turned into weeks, weeks into years, and the fate of Dalen Moke Pua remains an enigmatic chapter in the island's history. Yet, in the heart of it all lies that haunting image, forever casting a shadow of mystery over the stairway to heaven. If you have any information about Dalen Pua's disappearance, please call the Maui Police Department at 808-244-6400. Number 35. Is Tara Calico the girl in the 1989 Polaroid? In July 1989, a Polaroid photograph was discovered in a Port St. Joe, Florida, convenience store parking lot, revealing a distressing image of a young girl and boy bound and gagged in a van. This grim finding sparked a debate that has spanned over 3 decades, centered on the girl's identity and the mysterious circumstances surrounding the photograph. Tara Calico, a young woman who went missing on September 20th, 1988, from Belen, New Mexico, quickly became...
I don't want to sound like the douchebag here. Why are we just focusing on the girl's identity? There was a little boy who got kidnapped and gagged too. Why are we only focusing on identifying the woman here? Why are we putting more emphasis on that than not the guy, the little boy?
became a focal point of this debate. Her mother, Patty Doelle, believed the girl in the Polaroid bore a striking resemblance to her daughter, and the image reignited hopes of finding Tara alongside fears that she was being held captive somewhere. Various entities, including Scotland Yard, the Los Alamos National Laboratory, and the FBI, were called upon to analyze the photograph. Surprisingly, each reached a different conclusion. Scotland Yard believed it was Tara, Los Alamos National Laboratory disagreed, and the FBI's report stated that it couldn't definitively determine the girl's identity.
Hold on, so you had 3 different people look at it? One said yes, one said no, one said I don't know. I was literally answering. One said yes, it is her, one said no, it isn't, and one said I don't know. If I can't come to an answer to that one. Unbelievable.
In November 2022, the DOE Network, a volunteer organization aiding law enforcement with missing persons and unidentified remains cases, recently closed the profile for the unidentified girl in the Polaroid, 66UFFL, along with the boy, 96UMFL, in the same photo. This decision stirred controversy and renewed discussions about Tara Calico's disappearance. The reasons behind the closure remain unclear. Some users reached out to the DOE network for clarification, with one email exchange revealing that the photo was deemed a hoax by the network, but the individuals in it were never identified. Over the years, 2 more Polaroid photos surfaced, sparking speculation of connections to Tara's case. However, these photos did not receive the same attention as the 1989 Polaroid, and their association with Tara remains unconfirmed. The closure of the DOE network profiles raised questions about how to identify the girl in the Polaroid. Without fingerprints, dental records, or DNA on file, identifying her has proven challenging. The DOE network's primary purpose is to assist law enforcement in solving such cases, but little assistance can be offered in this instance. Moreover, the absence of specific labels like closed by NamUs or identified per law enforcement on the DOE network's updates page for the closed profiles added to the mystery. While the identity of the girl in the 1989 Polaroid remains unknown, recent developments have cast doubt on whether she is Tara Calico. Authorities received information in 2008 suggesting Tara's death was accidental at the hands of 2 teenagers who struck her with their truck while she was bicycling. The case had a new lead in 2021, but details remain undisclosed to the public at this time. Despite expert opinions and statements from law enforcement and the DOE network, the debate persists. However, amidst this discussion, the true focus should remain on the missing person, Tara Calico. Her case deserves attention beyond the enigmatic Polaroid, as she remains missing, waiting to be found, dead or alive, and remembered for what she meant to the people who knew her before she disappeared. The debate surrounding Tara Calico's case not only highlights the enduring mystery of the 1989 Polaroid, but also underscores the need to remember and search for Tara herself. Her disappearance is a heart-wrenching story of a young woman who vanished without a trace, leaving her family and friends in anguish. Patty Doelle's unwavering belief that the girl in the Polaroid was her daughter demonstrates the pain and desperation that loved ones of missing persons endure. For over 3 decades, she held on to the hope that this photograph could be the key to finding Tara. The conflicting analyses from prominent agencies like Scotland Yard, Los Alamos National Laboratory, and the FBI added layers of complexity to the case. The closure of the DOE network profiles for the girl and boy in the Polaroid sparked renewed interest and speculation. While the reasons for this closure remain unknown to the general public, it raises questions about the challenges of identifying someone based solely on a photograph, especially when critical forensic data like fingerprints, dental records, and DNA are unavailable. Tara's case often becomes synonymous with the Polaroid. It is crucial to remember Tara as an individual, a vibrant young woman with dreams and aspirations, whose disappearance continues to haunt those who cared about her. While the debate persists, the search for Tara Calico should never waver, and her memory should endure beyond the confines of a single photograph. Number 34, Shelby Thornburg. On November 4th, 2015, 20-year-old Shelby Thornburg was found murdered in her apartment in Houston, Texas.
Oh, we've heard this one before. We've been hearing this case more than I wish we did, to be honest. We really can't get up. This is one of them I cannot get away from cases.
Shelby was a worker who had met up with a client shortly before she was found dead by her boyfriend Marcus. Even before she was found dead, Shelby's life had been full of pain. She and her sister Kirstina Scott grew up in foster care, where they were routinely physically and these traumatic experiences left both women dealing with PTSD and mental struggles. Shelby, for example, was obese for most of her life and suffered from body image issues and insecurity. Finally, in the few years before she lost her life, she decided to make a change. She dedicated time to dieting and exercising and taking care of herself and her appearance. She lost around 180 pounds and made plans for plastic surgery procedures with a new goal of becoming a model. Shelby failed to find a stable job and couldn't afford the work she wanted done, and so she began to engage in sex work. She went to great lengths to hide the true nature of the job from her sister. She insisted to her that she didn't have sex with any of her clients. She said that she only went out on dates with rich men in the city. In April 2014, Shelby was arrested for prostitution and had to serve 33 days in jail. In an attempt to keep the truth hidden, she told her sister that she wasn't working the streets and just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. This lie was eventually exposed when she was arrested once again on the same charge in June 2015. Despite these setbacks, she continued her work. Her longtime boyfriend, Marcus Dwayne Johnson, was also her pimp. He helped find Shelby work and was supposed to protect her while she was with clients. On the day that Shelby was killed, however, he wasn't able to show up quickly enough to save her from her fate. Shelby had a date set up for the night, an in-call, where the man was going to come to her apartment. Around 8:33 p.m., she received a text from the unidentified client saying, "I'm here." Surveillance footage from the Conquistador Apartments in Houston, Texas, showed the client walking into the lobby and heading toward the unit. Shelby and Marcus had a code word, GUD, that meant that the date went well, she was safe, and she got her money. This text was sent around 8:40 p.m., and a short time later, around 8:57, more footage from the lobby showed the date calmly walking out. Some time went by, and without additional word from his partner. Marcus grew worried and went to her apartment. There he found her kneeling on the ground with her head lying across the bed. There was blood pooled on the floor and smeared on the walls and bed. Shelby was clearly dead. An autopsy later showed that her neck had been cut with a large knife. The cut was so deep that it hit her spinal cord. Investigators determined that whoever had killed Shelby must have had some anatomical knowledge to make such a specific and brutal cut. After finding Shelby, Marcus made a hysterical 911 call, saying to the operator, "Someone's dead. They killed my girl." For reasons unknown, Houston police did not contact the homicide investigative team before arriving.
We know the reason. Oh, we know the reason. It's because the woman was a prostitute and them little sad fucks couldn't because of that job, go under the assumption she probably needed that. They went in there, looked inside, saw, oh look, there's actually a dead woman. Well, we walked around, but she looks dead. I guess we'll call 911. I guess we better call the homicide thing. Like, yeah, she's dead. This sex bitch is actually dead, yeah. Guess you might as well show up. I can't really justify. She has a cut completely around her head, so you might want to come.
Off the clock, officers in street clothing entered the apartment to confirm that Shelby could not be saved. They then finally proceeded to call in the homicide team. Between the time the call was made and the time the new crew showed up, the crime scene had virtually turned into a museum showcase. A small crowd had formed, including officers who had not been dispatched to the scene and employees of the complex. Because of all the foot traffic and the fact that the scene had not been properly blocked off, valuable evidence had been destroyed.
It's all because this woman was a sex worker. You can't convince me otherwise. This all went awry for this case because this woman was a sex worker and these cops just didn't give a fuck.
Investigators struggled to identify evidence at the scene, making it difficult to pinpoint a suspect. The only evidence that was found was a single hair on the victim's body, which was never matched in the system. The text messages and security footage were the only real pieces of evidence detectives had to go on. The phone used by the client to contact Shelby was a burner which had been activated earlier that same day and was deactivated shortly after the murder. Even with footage of the killer entering and leaving the apartment, investigators have yet to identify him. If you recognize this suspect, or if you have any information on the case, you are encouraged to call 334-542-3459. Number 33. The haunting grim sleeper photos. In a sprawling metropolis like Los Angeles, crime is a daily reality of city life. Many don't think twice about the sinister as they go about their business. Yet, among the many tales that have shocked the City of Angels, the story of Lonnie David Franklin Jr., infamously known as the Grim Sleeper, stands out. His murderous history spans decades, and his moniker reflects a 14-year period wherein officials thought him to be dormant in his violent tendencies. However, for the women of South Central LA, the nightmare never ended until his apprehension. From 1985 to 2007, Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was implicated in the murders of 10 women and the attempted murder of another. The majority of the victims were young, vulnerable African-American women, many of whom were addicts and sex workers with higher-risk lifestyles. His victims' bodies, often showing signs of sex, were discarded in alleyways, dumpsters, and abandoned buildings around South Central LA. Initially, these killings seemed random and isolated. Police in the area were accustomed to violence perpetrated against addicts and sex workers in the area. However, as detectives dug deeper, a chilling pattern began to emerge, both in the modus operandi and the choice of victims. Ballistic and DNA evidence connected the crimes, but for years, the elusive Grim Sleeper managed to avoid identification and capture. The Grim Sleeper's name originates from an apparent hiatus in his criminal activities between 1988 and 2002. However, this apparent gap may be misleading. While it's true that no murders were directly linked to Franklin during this time, many believe he was continuously active. A search of his residence uncovered photos and videos of nearly 180 potential victims, suggesting that the scope of his crimes might have been far more extensive than previously believed. A significant breakthrough in the case came in 2010, not directly from Franklin's DNA, but from that of his son. A familial DNA match, a relatively new technique at the time, linked his son's DNA to evidence from the crime scenes. With this lead, the LAPD surveilled Franklin and obtained a direct DNA sample, which ultimately matched him to the DNA profiles from the Grim Sleeper's crime scenes. When the LAPD raided Lonnie David Franklin Jr.'s South Los Angeles home in 2010, they were hoping to simply find evidence solidifying their case against him. Instead, they stumbled upon a chilling trove, nearly 180 photos and several videos of women, many unconscious or seemingly deceased. This discovery hinted at a far more extensive reign of terror than the crimes for which he was initially indicted. The women were of various ages and ethnicities, and many appeared vulnerable. Some were nude, others were posed in or compromising positions, and still others appeared to be asleep or possibly drugged. The sheer volume and nature of these photographs presented a horrifying possibility. Had the Grim Sleeper claimed more victims than initially believed? The LAPD took the unprecedented step of releasing a portion of these photographs to the public, hoping to identify the women and determine if they were safe or if, indeed, they were additional victims of Franklin's sadistic spree. The public release led to a whirlwind of emotions in the community, particularly among families who had missing loved ones. Each photograph represented a potential answer, albeit a harrowing one, to a family's quest for closure. Thanks to tips from the public, some of the women were identified and confirmed to be alive. Yet, many remained unidentified, their fates uncertain. This reinforced the chilling notion that Franklin's violent crimes were far more extensive than the 10 murders and 1 attempted murder for which he was convicted. Despite the LAPD's extensive efforts, a significant number of the photographed women have never been identified. This leaves a troubling gap in the narrative of Franklin's crimes. Were these unidentified women victims of the Grim Sleeper, their fates sealed? Could some of them have escaped after being photographed, too traumatized or fearful to come forward? Could some be living out their lives, blissfully unaware that their image was captured by a murderer? Or was this a macabre collection, a trophy compilation of sorts, with no direct harm done to the women? While Franklin was known for his propensity to photograph his victims, the intent behind this particular collection remains shrouded in mystery. Nearly 6 years after his July 2010 arrest, in May 2016, Lonnie Franklin was convicted of 10 counts of...
So what's the unsolved part here? That there's people who aren't identified, I guess? Because the actual crime itself is solved.
first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. In August of the same year, he was sentenced to death. In March 2020, at the age of 67, Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was found dead in his cell. Though officials released a statement that they found no obvious signs of trauma, his cause of death has not been disclosed to the public. Please contact the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Missing Persons Unit at 323-890-5500 if you have any information that would lead to the identification of the women in these photos. Number 32. Funtime Kids Care. In January 2015, Reddit user...
Oh! Okay, we know that. So we have 2 more. This one and then the next one. And then we're done for this video.
Disco Godfather 6922 posted what looked to be a dilapidated green building with the sign Funtime Kids Care onto the Salt Lake City subreddit. The user captioned the image, "What's the deal with this place? Lived across the street from it for 5 years. Never seen a kid there." Within minutes, Salt Lake City locals began commenting on the post, voicing how they too had never seen anyone go in or out of the building. One individual recalled glimpsing children inside, despite obscured windows. Another, stating they were a postal worker, confirmed the daycare was operational, but curiously remarked, "Regardless of my arrival time, it seemed to always be nap time." Yet another individual mentioned an acquaintance who trespassed on the property and discovered a room with a chair oriented towards a TV, which displayed live footage of another room in the same establishment. Things took a dark twist when a user by the name of Deathship wrote, "I am going to advise you guys to stop looking into this place." Curious sleuths began checking out the user's profile and found that the user claimed to be ex-military who had been stationed at Area 51. They also claimed to have the ability to speak 8 languages. Soon, the thread devolved into conspiracy and speculation abounded, prompting Reddit administrators to remove the primary discussion from r/Salt Lake City. By then, countless comments had been posted, and some individuals had even taken to pestering the business and revealing personal details about its owner. The administrators emphasized the removal was a preventative action against potential witch hunts, and to ensure the privacy and safety of the business owners and other community members. Yet this decision only intensified the intrigue. The discussion migrated to other online platforms, and participants questioned the justification of the admin's intervention. By now, users were convinced the daycare was a front for human trafficking, and behind the scenes, they began to plan to storm the establishment in an effort to save our children. One user even uploaded photos that he had taken through the windows of the daycare. Despite the protests of neighbors who insisted that Funtime Kids Care was a regular daycare and not a front for something sinister, the online fervor continued to escalate.
You can't convince online people everything. Online people, someone could go film a whole day there, in there, with a daycare. They'd still tell you it's not real. Doesn't matter what you tell people online. Online people will not be convinced it is real unless you tell them what they want to hear. That is it. You could show every amount of evidence what they're doing is wrong. They'll just say it's all cover up because what they say believe it is has to be what it is. So weird.
In the midst of this, Vice wrote an article detailing the conspiracy and managed to track down the owner of Funtime Kids Care. The reporter discovered that the current owner purchased the daycare for his mother and had begged media outlets to leave their family business, now in tatters, alone. After intense, unwarranted public backlash, multiple police visits, and a business destroyed at the hands of an unknown Reddit user, was u/Deathship simply trolling, or did he know something we're yet to uncover? Number 31.
So I'm gonna assume a business closed for no reason. Well, not no reason. Because they really didn't do anything. It was just closed because people are such harassed little fuckers.
Mariano Medina Funes Mariano Medina Funes was 26 years old when he mysteriously vanished on New Year's Eve 2019 from his hometown of Jacinto City, Texas. Mariano spoke to his sister before he disappeared to let her know that he planned on picking up some fireworks to celebrate the new year with his family. Things apparently did not go according to plan, and Mariano was never seen again. According to his family, Mariano was a hardworking man with a huge heart. They often referred to him as a big teddy bear due to his kindness. He had no known enemies, and in fact, didn't have many friends he hung out with outside of his family. These details convinced his family and investigators that he would never willingly disappear from his life and loved ones. Although he did smoke pot, he wasn't much of a drinker, and, as far as anyone knew, never got involved with heavier substances. On the day of his disappearance, before going to buy the fireworks he mentioned, Mariano met up with two unidentified men to purchase pot. Security footage from his apartment complex showed a black car pulling up in the parking lot. A man in the passenger seat opened his door and exited the car to let Mariano into the back seat. Based on the timeline that was laid out during the initial investigation, another source of footage spotted the same car at a gas station about 30 minutes to an hour later. This time in the footage, Mariano switched seats with the passenger. Another person from the car was seen entering the store. That clip was eventually released to the public in the hopes that a witness would recognize the mystery man. Obviously, though, no one ever came forward to identify him. A while after leaving the store, Mariano made a concerning call to his girlfriend. He told her that he was at someone's house, but didn't specify who or where. He seemed frantic and afraid. He began yelling, "They're going to kill me," several times before the call was disconnected. This was the last time Mariano was ever heard from. A search was conducted, an investigation was performed, yet the case seemed to have hit a dead end. Officials were unable to locate any additional evidence or identify the suspects to bring them closer to finding the beloved uncle, son, and brother. Although things seem frozen in time now, Lieutenant Dennis Walker states that he has not let the case go and is still working hard with his team to bring Mariano home. If you have any information on this case, please contact Jacinto City, Texas officials at 281-309-95.
I'm sorry, I have a skin con in my throat. Good thing I got no other video to...
500. Number...
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for part 1 of this reaction video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all for the next one.